Have you ever felt that society imposes on you the obligation to find someone to be happy, that somehow without a partner by your side, your life would be incomplete? What if I told you that the most powerful woman is the one who does not seek her strength in others, but in herself? We live in a world that insists on defining a woman's value through her relationships. If she has a husband, they say she's well established. If she is single, they ask, "But why?" As if this were a problem to solve. But what if true fulfillment were not in finding a partner, but in discovering who you really are? The woman who walks alone without a husband, without needing anyone's validation, defies all expectations. She chooses a path that many avoid, a path where her faith is her only guide. She does not feel incomplete without a relationship because she knows that her strength does not come from what others say, but from the confidence she has built within herself. She does not seek the world's acceptance because she has learned that her true identity resides in something much greater than any external validation. But how does this woman reach this level of self-knowledge and independence? How does she transform solitude, which for many is a fear, into her greatest source of power? Carl Jung, one of the great scholars of the human mind, affirmed that true transformation occurs when we turn inward, when we seek to understand ourselves and not just fit into what society expects of us. Individuation, the process of becoming who we really are, does not happen when we follow patterns, but when we break the chains that bind us to other people's expectations. And this woman who walks alone, without depending on a husband or a relationship to validate her existence, is following precisely that path. But be careful, this does not mean that she rejects love or relationships. On the contrary, she understands that before sharing her life with someone, she needs to be complete. Before committing to any relationship, you need to know your own essence deeply. She knows that her peace does not depend on the presence of another human being, but on the unbreakable connection she has built with her faith. And now I ask you, have you ever felt pressured to follow a path that was not yours? Have you ever found yourself trying to please others, sacrificing the strong and independent woman inside you? I want you to leave your story in the comments. If so, this video is for you because today we are going to explore how this woman, who walks alone guided only by her faith, found a power that no one could ever take away from her. A power that you too can access. Stay with me until the end of this video and discover how solitude can be the beginning of your greatest liberation. The inner strength of a woman who walks alone. Have you ever felt that you needed someone by your side to be strong, that without a partner or someone to support you, your life would be incomplete? Society insists on making us believe that we need a relationship to feel secure, but the truth is that the most powerful woman is the one who finds her strength within herself. Walking alone can seem terrifying in a world where marriage and relationships are constantly celebrated as the key to happiness. Choosing to follow an independent path can be seen as something bold, but the woman who walks alone discovers something that many have not yet realized. True strength does not come from being accompanied, but from knowing that you can face any challenge on your own. This strength does not appear overnight. It is built with every difficulty overcome, with every moment when you found yourself alone and still found the courage to continue. This strength comes from resilience, faith, and the certainty that your path does not need to be validated by anyone but yourself. But how can a woman develop this strength? How can she learn to trust herself even when the whole world seems to question her decision to walk alone? The answer lies in connecting with your essence. The woman who walks alone does not depend on the approval of others because she has learned to listen to her own voice. She does not let herself be influenced by society's expectations because she has already found within herself everything she needs to be happy. And above all, she knows that solitude is not a void. It is a sacred space for growth and self-knowledge. Carl Jung said that individuation, That is, the process of truly becoming who we are only occurs when we set aside the masks that the world imposes on us and embark on our own inner journey. The woman who walks alone embodies this idea. She understands that her strength is not in having someone by her side, but in knowing that even alone she is complete. But for this strength to flourish, it is necessary to break with the fears and limiting beliefs that society imposes. Have you ever noticed how many women are afraid of being alone? How is solitude seen as a sign of failure instead of an opportunity for growth? The woman who learns to walk alone discovers that true freedom is not in having someone to hold her, but in knowing that she can hold herself. A true story of courage. Anna always believed that her happiness depended on being in a relationship. From a young age, she was taught that a woman should marry, start a family, and be complete with someone. And so, for years, she clung to relationships that did not make her happy, just out of fear of being alone. But one day, Anna decided to change her story. After an abusive marriage, she found the strength to start over on her own. At first, it was difficult. The silence of the empty house scared her, and the absence of a partner made her doubt herself. But as the days passed, Anna began to reconnect with something she had lost: herself. She went back to school, started her own business, and most importantly, strengthened her faith. Instead of looking for someone to fill the void, she learned to find fulfillment within herself. Today, Anna does not walk alone. She walks with purpose, with confidence, and with the certainty that her strength has never been in anyone else, but has always been within her. Anna's story is not unique. Thousands of women every day discover that walking alone does not mean being lost. It means being on the right path to finding oneself. And you, are you ready to discover your own strength? Overcoming solitude and personal transformation. Have you ever felt the weight of solitude? Have you ever found yourself looking around, searching for someone to fill a void that seemed unbearable? Society teaches us that being alone is a problem, something to be solved as quickly as possible. But what if solitude were not a weakness, but an opportunity for transformation? What if, instead of drowning in the fear of being alone, we learned to use it as a springboard for personal growth? The truth is that solitude can be a gift, but only for those who have the courage to embrace it. While many try to escape silence and introspection, the woman who decides to face them discovers something powerful. Solitude is not a void. It is a sacred space to rediscover, heal, and strengthen oneself. The process of personal transformation does not occur when we are surrounded by distractions, noise, or external expectations. It happens when we allow ourselves to dive into ourselves, when we learn to be comfortable in our own company. Carl Jung said that individuation, the path to becoming who we really are, is only possible when we stop seeking our identity in others and start finding it within ourselves. But overcoming solitude requires courage. At first, it can be painful. It may seem like the world has become a cold place, that no one understands your journey, or that the silence is deafening. But it is precisely in this silence that you begin to hear your own voice. This is where you learn to differentiate what you really want from what you have been conditioned to believe you need. True personal transformation occurs the moment you realize that you do not need a partner, a group of friends, or society's acceptance to be complete. You are already enough. Truly overcoming solitude does not mean filling your life with people, but filling your heart with the certainty that you are capable of living fully, regardless of who is by your side. A woman who learns to walk alone does not become bitter or close herself off to love. On the contrary, she becomes so strong and self-assured that when she chooses someone to be by her side, she does so out of desire, not necessity. She does not accept just any company to avoid the void, because she has already learned that this void can be the greatest gift of her life. A true story of transformation. Mariana always feared being alone. From a young age, she jumped from one relationship to another, believing that her happiness depended on the presence of someone. The idea of being single terrified her, and she did everything possible to avoid that scenario. But one day, everything changed. After the end of a long and toxic relationship, Mariana found herself without anyone by her side. Desperation took hold of her, and she felt that she no longer knew who she was without a partner. However, instead of quickly seeking another relationship, she decided to do something different. Face her solitude. At first it was difficult. The silence of the empty house felt heavy. But little by little, Mariana began to realize that this was the opportunity she needed to get to know herself. She started traveling alone, picked up hobbies she had neglected, and most importantly, rebuilt her self-esteem without needing anyone else's validation. Today, Mariana is a renewed woman. Her transformation did not happen because she found another partner, but because she found herself. She no longer fears solitude. She has learned to see it as an ally, not an enemy. And you, are you ready to turn your solitude into your greatest strength? Faith as foundation and purpose. Have you ever felt that in the midst of life's chaos, the only thing keeping you standing was your faith? Have you ever gone through moments when everything seemed uncertain, and the only certainty left was that God was by your side? Life does not always follow the script we plan. Relationships end, challenges arise, people come and go, but there is something that never changes, never fails, and never abandons us: faith. For the woman who walks alone, without a husband or any other external source of support, her faith becomes her greatest foundation. When everyone around her tells her that she must find someone to feel complete, she responds with the certainty that her fulfillment does not come from another human being, but from her connection with something much greater. She understands that her life does not need to be validated by anyone but God. But how do you keep that faith alive when times are tough? How? Can you trust that there is a purpose when everything seems to be going wrong? The answer lies in surrender. Often, we try to control every detail of our lives, seeking security in fleeting things, a relationship, a job, the approval of others. But when we learn to truly trust, we understand that what seems like a loss may actually be an intentional detour toward a much greater path than we imagined. Faith does not mean the absence of challenges. In fact, it often means going through storms without losing the certainty that the sun will shine again. A woman who trusts in faith does not fear solitude because she knows she is never alone. She learns to hear God's voice in silence and finds strength in moments when others might crumble. Carl Jung, one of the greatest scholars of the human mind, spoke about the process of individuation, the journey to become who we really are. And that is exactly what happens when a woman surrenders to her faith. She stops seeking validation from the outside world and begins to live according to the purpose that God has placed within her. She is not shaken by others' expectations because she knows that her mission is greater than any external opinion. A true story of purpose and transformation. Claudia always believed that her life would follow the traditional path: get married, have children, and start a family. But at 35, she found herself alone after a painful divorce. She realized that she had invested all her happiness in a relationship, and that now, without it, she no longer knew who she was. It was at that moment that Claudia decided to rebuild her life on a different foundation: faith. She began to pray every day, seeking answers within herself and opening up to the purpose that God had for her life. Little by little, she realized that her happiness did not depend on marriage, but on her connection with God and her own essence. Today, Claudia lives with purpose. She found joy in her own company, discovered passions she had never explored, and realized that her life has value regardless of her marital status. Her faith has guided her on a path she never imagined, and now, instead of fearing solitude, she sees it as a gift. And you, are you ready to build your life on a foundation that will never crumble? The illusion of external validation. Have you ever felt that you needed others' approval to feel good? Have you ever adjusted your personality, your dreams, or your choices just to be accepted? Society teaches us from a young age that our value is tied to others' opinions. We are encouraged to please, to be good enough for a partner, for family, for friends. But what if all this were just a grand illusion? Many women live trapped in this need for external validation without even realizing it. They believe that if they are socially accepted, have a stable relationship, an admirable group of friends, or an enviable professional status, they will finally feel complete. But the truth is that this search is a bottomless pit. When we place our self-esteem in the hands of others, we are always vulnerable, always dependent on the next compliment, the next approval, the next confirmation that we are worthy of love and respect. The woman who walks alone and finds her strength in faith understands that her identity cannot be defined by external glances. She understands that the most important validation does not come from the world, but from herself. She does not desperately seek a relationship to prove her worth because she knows she is already complete without needing anyone to complete her. But how can we free ourselves from this illusion? How do we stop seeking approval and start living our purpose? First, it is necessary to recognize that external validation is temporary. Today they may praise you, and tomorrow they may criticize you. If your self-esteem is tied to what others say about you, you will live in a constant state of emotional instability. However, when your confidence comes from something internal and unshakable, be it your faith, your principles, or your self-knowledge, nothing can bring it down. Carl Jung spoke of the importance of freeing oneself from external projections and seeking individuation. That is, truly becoming who one is, without masks, without the need to please, without conforming to what is expected. The woman who walks alone understands this truth. She knows that to live a full and authentic life, she needs to learn to say no to what does not resonate with her essence, and yes to what strengthens her. A true story of liberation. Camilla had always been the perfect girl. She did everything to please her family, strove to be the best employee at work, and molded her personality to fit into her relationships. But despite all the external approval, she felt empty. The validation she sought never lasted long because it depended on something beyond her control: others' opinions. One day, after ending a relationship in which she had completely abandoned herself, Camilla decided to change. She began to ask herself, "Who am I?" without trying to please anyone. It was a difficult process, but little by little, she learned to trust herself. She started making decisions based on what was best for her, not on what others expected. And for the first time, she felt a freedom she had never experienced before. Today, Camilla does not seek external validation. She found her strength within herself, and most importantly, she understood that she never needed anyone's approval to be happy. And you, are you ready to free yourself from this illusion and live in your truth? Income and freedom, trusting in life's purpose. Have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you didn't have to depend on anyone to support yourself, if you could fully trust that no matter the circumstances, you would always have what you need to follow your path? Society has taught us to seek security in relationships, stable jobs, and others' approval. But what if true freedom were not in any of that, but in the confidence that by following your purpose, everything you need will come to you in its own time? Many women live in fear of independence, not because they are incapable, but because they have been conditioned to believe they need someone by their side to guarantee their stability. This belief creates a cycle of emotional and financial dependence that often prevents them from reaching their true potential. But the woman who walks alone and trusts in her life's purpose knows that her income and freedom do not come from a partner or a traditional job, but from her faith and the courage to follow her mission. Carl Jung said that the unconscious guides us to where we truly belong, and that resisting this call creates suffering. This means that when you decide to trust and take a step toward your purpose, life begins to align the right opportunities in your path. But to achieve this, it is necessary to let go of the fear of scarcity and believe that you are fully capable of supporting yourself and thriving without depending on others. True freedom occurs when you understand that you do not have to stay in an unhappy relationship to have security, that you do not have to limit yourself to a job you do not love out of fear of the unknown. The woman who frees herself from these ties finds peace in the certainty that by following her truth, she will always be supported. But trusting in your life's purpose does not mean sitting back and waiting for things to happen. It means acting with faith, making decisions aligned with your values, and opening yourself to new possibilities. When you let go of the fear of lack and believe that you will always have what you need, your mindset changes, and with it, your opportunities. A true story of independence and faith. Renata spent years in an unhappy marriage because she believed she could not support herself. Despite having talent and an entrepreneurial spirit, the fear of not being able to make it paralyzed her. She was afraid of not being able to pay the bills, of not knowing where to start, of not having anyone to support her. But one day, after another night feeling suffocated by a life she no longer wanted to live, Renata made a decision to trust. With little money and a lot of determination, she started a small online business selling crafts. At first, it was difficult. There were days when she doubted herself, when she thought about giving up. But every time she felt afraid, she turned to her faith. And then something began to change. Little by little, her sales grew, her customer network expanded, and she realized she was much more capable than she had imagined. Today, Renata not only supports herself, but lives with the freedom she always dreamed of. She discovered that her income and security did not come from a partner, but from her own courage to trust in her life's purpose. And you, are you ready to free yourself from fear and believe that everything you need is already within you? Have you ever found yourself in a moment in your life when, despite everything seeming out of control, the only thing that kept you going was your faith? Have you ever felt that even without answers, an invisible force was guiding your steps? When solitude hits, when doubts arise, and when the path seems uncertain, the only certainty we can have is that God never abandons us. Life does not always follow the script we imagine. People leave, unexpected, challenges appear, and often we find ourselves alone in battles we did not choose to fight. But in those moments, when everything seems to be falling apart, we learn to truly trust. Faith is not about understanding every detail of the plan, but knowing that there is a plan and that it is perfect even when we cannot see it. Carl Jung spoke about the power of the unconscious and the symbolism that guides us in difficult times. In spirituality, we call this divine providence. It is that whisper in our heart that reminds us to keep going, that small sign in the midst of chaos that shows us we are not alone. God speaks to us in many ways, through circumstances, people, nature, and most importantly, silence. But to hear, we need to be willing to stop, reflect, and trust. Often we seek answers in the outside world when, in reality, everything we need is already within us. God created us complete, strong, capable. Prayer is not just a cry for help. It is a moment of deep connection with the Creator, a reminder that He is always present, no matter what we are facing. If today you feel lost, tired, or without direction, stop for a moment. Breathe deeply, close your eyes, and let go of your worries. Talk to God as if you were talking to a close friend. He knows your pain, your anguish, and also the deepest desires of your heart, and He is working in your life, even if you cannot see it yet. A true story of faith. Sophia had always been a strong woman, but after losing her job and ending a years-long relationship, she felt that everything had spiraled out of control. Suddenly, the life she had planned no longer existed. Anxiety and fear took hold of her, and for the first time she felt truly alone, not knowing what to do. One night, Sophia simply knelt down and began to pray. It was not a memorized prayer, but a sincere expression, telling God that she no longer knew where to go. In the following days, she began to feel a peace she could not explain. Small signs began to appear. An unexpected call, a new opportunity, a feeling of hope growing within her. Today, Sophia does not have all the answers, but she has something much more valuable, the certainty that she is never alone. Her faith has strengthened her, and now she walks with confidence, knowing that God always has a plan. And have you ever stopped to listen to God's voice in silence? Perhaps this is the answer you were waiting for. The journey of the woman who walks alone. A woman who walks alone is not fragile, she is not incomplete, and she is definitely not lost. On the contrary, she is strong, brave, and aware of her worth. She understands that her happiness is not tied to the presence of a partner, to society's approval, or to any other external factor. Her strength comes from within, from the unshakable faith she carries in her heart, and from the certainty that she is exactly where she needs to be. The world insists on telling us that happiness depends on a pre-established script. Find someone, build a life with that person, and follow a path that seems safe and validated by others. But what if true happiness were not in what we were taught to desire, but in the freedom to live according to our own essence? The woman who learns to walk alone discovers a power that few know. She understands that she does not need anyone's approval to be happy, and that her strength comes from trusting her own path. Throughout this journey, she faces challenges. Sometimes solitude can weigh on. Her fear of the future may arise, and doubt about her choices may try to weaken her. But in those moments, she remembers that her foundation is not in the instability of her circumstances, but in the solid rock of her faith. She learns to trust the process, knowing that every brave step brings her closer to her true purpose. Carl Jung spoke about the process of individuation, the journey to become who we really are, and this journey requires us to abandon the masks, the roles imposed on us, and everything that limits us. The woman who walks alone and surrenders to her faith does not fear this transformation. Instead, she embraces it with gratitude, knowing that every experience, no matter how challenging, makes her even stronger. But this does not mean she rejects love, companionship, or relationships. It means she is not defined by them. She knows that any relationship in her life should be a choice, not a necessity. She does not settle for less than she deserves because she understands that her happiness does not depend on another person, but on her connection with herself and with God. Throughout this video, we explored the power of solitude as a tool for transformation, the importance of trusting in faith, and the impact of living without depending on external validation. You saw that walking alone is not a sign of weakness, but of strength, that trusting in life's purpose brings a freedom that few dare to experience, and most importantly, that faith is the greatest foundation anyone can have. Now the question remains, are you ready to embrace this strength, to stop seeking approval where you do not need it, to trust that your path is already being prepared? The answer to this question is within you. If this video made you think, inspired you, or helped you in any way, do not stop here. We have many other videos that will strengthen you even more on this journey. So, click on the next video and continue discovering the power within you and of Course, do not forget to subscribe to the channel to follow all the content we prepare for you. Your transformation is just beginning.